Welcome back to TK Tennis. So this is the updated review for True Pro Pure Rush. I made what is pretty much an egregious mistake in terms of string reviews in my prior review, where I ended up calling this string a round poly. And that was a mistake, and that was just sloppy on my part. This is actually a 6-sided poly. I didn't notice it when I was stringing, nor did I look at the packaging to see if it was a sided string. Let's get into the review. In terms of cost, this string goes for about $10 per set and about $134 for a 660-foot reel. So a great value. Let's go into characteristics and start off with snapback. And for those of you that watch my string reviews, you'll notice that I've changed sort of my ranking system in terms of snapback, where I used to have it ranked as excellent or very good. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, and there's a better way to describe snapback, and it is now either hyper, fast, inconsistent, or nominal snapback, which nominal would sort of be with an old nylon string where the strings don't really snap back and they stay out of place. Sometimes you get some inconsistency with other snapback strings, but for the most part, most polyester strings are always going to get a fast or a hyper. Neither one being better than the other. It's just that some strings with a hyper slick coating on them are snap back very, very aggressively and hyper fast, where a normal polyester will snap back nicely in its normal fast fashion. And that's the case with this particular string. And that's pretty much like what you'll see with an Alu Power or a Solinco Hyper G, or the majority of strings that are out there will get a fast grade in terms of snapback. And this string is no difference. In terms of spin potential, even though it is a 6-sided string, I don't think it's very sharp. I didn't feel any sort of lack of trajectory control like I do sometimes feel with 4- and 5-sided shaped strings. I didn't find it to have any less spin than any other good poly, so I give it a normal in terms of spin potential. In the power category, also gets a normal, maybe slightly higher, but for the most part, it gets that normal amount of pace and power that you'd expect with any good poly. Some people end up talking about polys and getting more power or less power than some other polys, but I don't find that to be the case hardly ever. There are some cases like with Kirschbaum Super Smash where I get a little extra pop, or Restring Zero, which has a lot of extra pop for a poly, but for the most part, polys are control-oriented strings and they're not power-oriented strings. In terms of accuracy, it gets a very good to a high, even though it's a shaped poly. Sometimes with shaped polys, I lose some trajectory accuracy. That was not the case with the string. Its accuracy laterally and vertically was excellent, or very good to high. In terms of durability, it's also very high or just high. Durability, most strings last or break for me around the 6.5 to 7.5 hour mark. These broke at around the 8-hour mark, which was outstanding. It's about as high as I ever see on any sort of string. If I'm not breaking them within 8 hours, that's about as max durability as I typically will see. And the same for tension maintenance. Many polys will get a little soft or mushy about halfway through their life cycle. This was very much like Big Hitter Silver, where tension maintenance was outstanding. It really held its tension maintenance through about the 6.5 or 7 hour mark, where then it started to soften up a little bit more and it became noticeable that the strings were starting to get a little bit softer, but not nearly as much as you'll find with like a Yonex Polytour Pro or a Luxilon Alu Power or the Kirschbaum Super Smash and many other strings that about halfway through their life cycle, they really start to get mushy. That's not the case with Pure Rush whatsoever. In terms of feel, it's a medium soft string. It also has a little bit of crisp, so it's in between that soft and crispy feel. I put it more in that medium to medium soft range. It's certainly not firm and stiff, and it has a little bit of liveliness to it. And while I didn't mark it, it sort of has that more muted thumpy sound versus a plasticky sound or a sound that's a very high signal like an Alu Power or a Big Hitter S7 Tour that has more signal and more feedback. This has a little bit more of that muted thumpy feel, which personally that's my favorite type of feel, but a lot of other players prefer more of that signal and feedback coming through their strings. So in terms of final grades, in terms of intermediate players, that 3.0 to 3.5 level or 3.5 to 4.0 level, I give it an A-. I think it's an outstanding string for that range of players. Also from the 4.0 to 5.0 level, sort of that advanced player, it's also an A string. And even the high caliber players, even though high caliber players oftentimes like firmer and stiffer or crispier strings, I still think this string will work really well for them as well. So whenever you see a grade of an A, especially for all three categories, that's quite rare. A is outstanding. Whether it's an A minus or an A, in my mind, it's worth trying, and it has no significant drawbacks anywhere. And when you usually have something that's much weaker, or if you have durability problems or power issues or accuracy issues, then you're going to drop down into the B's and C's. And you certainly don't get that with this string. So who is it for? It's a classic A grade string for 4 out of 5 level players who want a highly performant poly string with great tension maintenance and longevity. Most intermediates at the 3-5 level who like polys will also find this to be a winner. And as often is the case with a semi-soft poly, high caliber players may want a little bit more feedback and a slightly firmer, crispier string. I would certainly use this string again. And what I like most about these boutique brands is not only that they make outstanding performance strings with great longevity, is that they're very value oriented. Some people will spend $20 for a set of string thinking that the string is better than something like Pure Rush, when in fact they're just spending more money to allow those bigger brands to spend more money on marketing and player endorsements. And in my mind, I would much rather keep the money in my pocket than give it to professional players or bigger brands. So I'm a big fan of these smaller brands that make outstanding strings all around, again, from performance, value, and longevity. I think strings like this are really hard to beat. And like I said in the original video, while this is a 6-sided poly, I thought it played almost identical to Big Hitter Silver. It's hard for me to be sure because I didn't play back and forth between 2 rackets strung with Big Hitter Silver and Pure Rush. So you never can be sure unless you're playing back and forth with 2 different rackets strung at the same tension on the same day. But I thought these strings played remarkably similar, even though one is round and even though one is a 6-sided string. So that's my review for True Pro Pure Rush. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, ask them in the comments. And I'll see you in the next string review and the next ace.